there. I'm so glad to be with you right now. Check out what I have over here. I have a cross that I brought home from church. It's a cross that we use on Sunday mornings when we're together, and it reminds me of being with you, so it's special to me. And then I just lit a candle, and when we're at church together and we light a candle, why do we do that? What does it mean? Do you remember? Means that we want God to be especially with us right now. Now remember, God is always with us, but when we light a candle, we're asking that He be especially with us. So now what I want you to do is think about what you dream of being when you grow up. What are your dreams of what you will become? Do you think you might be a teacher or a doctor or an astronaut or an artist or librarian? Well, I want you to imagine now that you're on top of a mountain, the very top. I want you to close your eyes and envision your dream of what you're going to be when you grow up. All right? Just think about what that looks like. Okay. Now the book we're going to read today has to do with dreams. So let's just jump right in. The Tale of Three Trees, a traditional folk tale retold by Angela Elwell Hunt and illustrations by Tim Jonka. Once upon a mountaintop, three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. See them there? The first tree looked up at the sky, twinkling like diamonds above him. "I want to hold treasure," he said. "I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in the whole world." The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. "I want to be a strong sailing ship," he said. "I want to travel mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world." The third little tree looked down at the valley below, where busy men and busy women worked in a busy town. "I don't want to leave this mountaintop at all," she said. "I want to grow so tall that when people stop to look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world." Years passed, the rains came, the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, three woodcutters climbed the mountain. Uh-oh. What do you think they're going to do? Let's see. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, "This tree is beautiful. It's perfect for me." And with a swoop of his shiny axe, the first tree fell. "Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest," thought the first tree. "I shall hold wonderful treasure." The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, "This tree's strong. It's perfect for me." And with a swoop of his shiny axe, the second tree fell. "Now I shall sail mighty waters," thought the second tree. "I shall be a strong ship fit for kings." And the third little tree felt her heart sink when the last woodcutter looked her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up. "Any kind of tree will do for me," he muttered. And swoop of his shiny axe, the third tree fell. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought him to a carpenter's shop, but the busy carpenter was not thinking about treasure chests. Instead, his work-worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. He was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him into a shipyard, but no mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat. Too small and too weak to sail an ocean or even a river, he was taken to a little lake. Every day he brought in loads of dead, smelly fish. And the third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in a lumber yard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted to do was stay on the mountaintop and point to God. Many days and nights passed, and the three trees nearly forgot their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured into the first tree as the young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. I wish I could make a cradle for him, her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the starlight shone on the smooth and sturdy wood. This manger is beautiful, she said. And suddenly, the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. What do you think that is? One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded onto an old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed out into the lake. Soon a thundering and thrashing storm arose, and the little tree shuddered. He knew he did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up and stretched out his hand and said, "Peace." The storm stopped as quickly as it had begun, and suddenly the second tree knew he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. One Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten wood pile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd, and she shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. That was a sad day. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It made the first tree beautiful. It made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. You see up here the manger and the ship and the cross. And that was better than being the tallest tree in the world. So the dreams that the three trees may not have come true in the way they thought they would, right? The first tree wasn't a beautiful treasure box filled with precious stones, but it did hold a precious gift, and that's Jesus, right? And the second tree wasn't this huge, strong ship that carried kings, but instead he carried the King of heaven and earth, Jesus. And the third tree wasn't the tallest tree ever, but instead became a symbol, the cross, that will always remind us of Jesus. So we may think that our life is going to go a certain way, but God often has other plans for us, and we can always trust that he knows best. So I'm thinking of all of you and hoping you're all doing okay, and I look forward to seeing you soon.